It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Matt Charlson, President and CEO of DataBank IMX. Matt loves helping people grow, taking on new challenges, and seeing DataBank evolve every day into a place where teammates can thrive. His path to leadership there began with launching and co-running a successful technology consulting firm, eDocument, that was sold to DataBank back in 2013. Matt achieved a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from Minnesota State University and founded eDocument with two partners in his mid-20s. They grew the company to about 60 employees before being purchased by DataBank, where he was eventually groomed to become CEO by the company's founder. Outside of work, you'll find Matt spending time with his two daughters, Abigail and Elizabeth, and their lab mix rescue, Simba. If it involves boating, golfing, the outdoors, or the Minnesota Vikings, Matt's interested. Matt Charlson, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks, Brant. Glad to be here.
Where does this podcast find you today?
I am at home in my office at Cincinnati, Ohio.
All right, great. And the weather getting a little cooler there now? Or
It is. We hit peak fall season over the weekend, so it's just beautiful here right now, but it is definitely cooling down.
I love it there. I know we spoke a few weeks ago. I spent about 2-3 years there, having
Right.
been a Proctor alum, and nothing like the fall there. It's just gorgeous, the river and all the changes and so forth are going on. So glad to connect with you today. Now, we love to kick these things off and, kind of talk about the early days. Now, did you grow up in Ohio, or is that your adopted home?
No, I didn't. I've been here for about 10 years, but I actually grew up in a really small neighborhood on a lake in rural Minnesota. So
Nice.
nothing
Nice.
fancy, cool place, but just kind of simple times. Learn to fish and hunt and sail, ride motorcycles, stuff like that. Just lots of outdoors at time.
Love it. Love it. And what did mom and dad do?
My mom worked in an office for the local government, actually a farm agency, and my stepdad sold insurance. My parents were divorced when I was younger, but everybody's working full time and out of the house most days.
Brothers and sisters?
One brother. I was actually an only child until I was about 14. My
Okay.
parents were divorced and got remarried, but I just learned to do a lot of things on my own.
Yeah.
But one brother.
Got it. And what were some of those things that you remembered from early on? Obviously both parents working, you probably were a little bit of a latchkey kid before that was a thing. And were there folks that, inspired you, whether coaches, teachers, etc., or, your stepdad and mom? What were the kind of things that you remember growing up?
Yeah, just I guess really doing a lot of things, outdoor activity, a lot of time on my own. Learning a lot of those skills that I didn't know at the time, but they really set me up. Later in life, it kind of got me to figure things out. Right, just learning to
Being
catch fish.
independent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Were you a good student in school?
I wish I could say I was, but I was not a great student. Probably part of borderline on horrible. I really went from class clown to just one of those boys that just doesn't apply yourself, and then at some age you discover beer and school takes a back seat. But it took me some time to grow up and figure all that out. But definitely kind of coasted through high school with not a lot of real thought to future. But the light bulb did come on eventually. It took me a little while, but college was a turnaround story for me, which I'm excited to tell you about later.
Great. Well, as you were going up elementary, junior high, high school, were there other activities that kind of took your attention? I know you're out there motorcycling and doing a lot of independent stuff, but was there things like, sports and, music, theater, debate, other kind of things that you got involved with at school?
Yeah, yeah, there was. I played sports when I was younger. I wasn't a great athlete. Certainly wasn't all that confident out there. I didn't kind of grow into my coordination until later later on in high school. But yeah, played music, played the trumpet actually in band when I was younger. So between sports and that, again as younger, but I actually started working at a pretty early age, probably 12 or 13. So I guess after a while, that was really my main outside activity. It was just starting to learn how to make a few dollars and get out there in the world.
What kind of jobs did you have at that age?
Oh boy, really, I did everything. I worked on farms. I worked in some construction things as a teenager. Actually worked on a vegetable farm of all places at like 13. That was kind of my first experience in sales, really. People coming up and trying to get a deal on a bag of vegetables or what have you, and trying to haggle a kid, which is kind of annoying, but it certainly taught me some resiliency and how to say no and all that. But I had to dig all these things up, so I was kind of proud of what I did and had to tell them no. But I moved on from that. I moved on to working at a restaurant. I was probably in high school at that time, definitely early high school, working at a restaurant. So lots of nights and weekends, really messy jobs when you think about what has to happen in a fast-paced restaurant environment. But interesting managers and things like that. And then from there, kind of a printing press, more of a factory environment, right? Definitely different from the things I was used to before. But I think the good thing is all of these things I learned, I didn't want to do them forever, so it really helped to motivate me to buckle down in school and again get back on track.
Some entrepreneurial things as well. Did you, have the paper route or other stuff that you did on your own?
Not really. A lot of those jobs were on my own, especially like in the construction thing and working on farms and all that. But I didn't do anything really entrepreneurial that I can think of. I knew I needed to work hard, right? I knew nothing was going to be handed to me, so wasn't a lot of extras at home. We had what we needed, but that was about it. So if I wanted something like a car eventually, or things, larger expenses like that, I knew I had to work for it. So everyone around me worked a lot. I don't really call anybody in my life really that didn't. So I just kind of kept my head down and found jobs and sometimes several at a time and just kind of attacked the world, that way.
You went to Minnesota State. Now, was
Yep.
that a kind of foregone conclusion? Did mom and dad both have their degrees? And, is that something that you had your eyes on, or did it kind of evolve to that?
It didn't really evolve that. My stepdad did go to Minnesota State. I knew a few people that went there, but really for me, it was really, kind of an easy choice. That was the college that would take me. I mentioned before I wasn't a great student, right? And but at that point I was determined to do something better. I just didn't know what, right? So I went in as a business major and kind of got right to work at that point. And a couple of early semesters on the dean's list got me a lot more confident about the direction I was headed. It was kind of like being a new person at that point, going
Well, that's a
from
big turnaround.
it
How
was,
did you
it
go
really
from kind of
was.
the average high school student to being on the dean's list at college?
This is going to be really embarrassing, but I my guidance counselor in high school, when you're in that, I guess you're late in your junior year. My daughter's actually a junior right now, so we're kind of going through these things on her end. But I guess late in my junior year, you start talking to guidance counselors about the next step and where you think you should go to college. And he actually said, "I don't think college is for you, buddy. I think that you should just find something else to do." So I was really down about that. Told that I came home and told that to my mom, and I think she had some words with him after that. But I, probably not the best at his job, but I guess probably was the kick in the tail that I needed to really recenter a bit in my life and do that. So I really I got there and I just said, okay, here now is when it really matters, and just buckled down and got after it.
And you chose business as a degree. Was that kind of a natural choice, or was it a default with
it
regards to, what you could go and do and learn?
Definitely a default. Yeah, definitely. It was kind of like I have no idea what I'm going to do, so I'll pick that. And pretty early on, after I guess a couple semesters of doing better from a grade standpoint, somebody said, "Hey, you're doing good. You should do something like electrical engineering, right?" So I switched. I switched my major. I did that, and I thought that sounded a lot better for me than something quite so broad like business. And when I got in there, what I found out is I really liked the the coding and the programming
Yeah.
classes a lot better than the engineering classes. So I went on to change my major again to computer science, and so I guess that was probably around 1996 or so. So the internet was
Yeah.
really heating up.
Pre-internet stage. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Things were starting to get really interesting there, and then one of my computer science professors, told the class, how much, what he thought people were going to be, earning from an income standpoint a couple years after school. I thought, oh, well, here, light bulb comes on again. I'm like, all right, I think I found it. I think I found a career. I mean, like, having fun. I picked a career that seems to be, going to be going strong here for the foreseeable future. So actually went on from there to look on for positions outside of school where I could start to like earn some practical work experience too. So yeah, it was kind of a fun progression. A lot of changes, right? A lot of me changing my mind, but it all worked out.
What was learning to code like back in those days in the mid 90s?
Oh, it was hard. I mean, there's no online resources, no YouTube, no any of that stuff to really help you. But it was really just a lot of nights. I can't say I was particularly good at it. I just really enjoyed the kind of the thrill of that. But yeah, just a lot of long nights, a lot of trial and error. Sitting down with other students and trying to figure things out too. But yeah, obviously the resources were different, right? No visual resources, all
Right.
very text driven, which was looking back, it sounds miserable, but it
What was
was
the
fun at the time.
language then? I mean, it was obviously pre-Java and everything else. Was it?
Yeah, I want to
I mean, I
say,
did Fortran cards. That dates me
yeah,
back when I was in college. I hope you didn't have to go through
yeah,
that
yeah.
pain.
No, it was a lot of. I guess that's a great question. And I don't even remember all of them, but I guess it was basic. There was
Yeah.
one class and I don't even know why they made us do this, but there was one class where it was assembly, and that was just so foreign and so difficult. But again, just it kind of taught you the fundamentals on how to learn that. I mean, it's been a number of years since I picked any of that up now, but it was I remember getting really really fun at the time. Just
So you
definitely.
found your groove. You found something that you enjoyed, and it sounds like you put a lot of time into it. Did you think that moving forward your career would be as a coder, as someone that would utilize that? Is that kind of the direction you set at that time, or?
It was, yeah, it was a very very technically oriented college career, and looking back, there's definitely some things I would have done a lot differently there too. But at the time, you're 20, 21. I found my first actual professional job as a part-time job in while I was still in college, and yeah, that was very technical as well. So yeah, I thought that was going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, I thought that was going to be me. I didn't really have my sights set on managing or anything at that point in time. I was really enjoying myself, and
Yeah.
from what I saw around me, it didn't seem like a lot of people really enjoyed that work, and this was just really exciting because it was kind of foreign to everybody, and nobody in my life, family and friends and things like that were in that kind of a role, so it was kind of exciting for them to see that too. So, but yeah, I thought that's what I was going to do for the foreseeable future anyway.
What was that first job you took out of college then, once you graduated?
So it was actually an internship. I worked full time for a couple summers in school, and then part time during school. But it was actually my uncle's company. We weren't overly close at the time, but I knew he was doing something in tech, and I approached him and said, "Hey, I'll take anything, right? I just want some real world experience and love to have a chance to learn." So his business was installing information systems in banks, which at the time was kind of cutting edge because it was really their second. The average bank was really the second. This is probably 1996, so it was their second major software purchase besides like their core banking platform, the thing that issues the accounts and does all that. So it was a neat time for us. It was pretty cutting edge in that industry, and I got to travel all summer long, different parts, different places of the U.S. to put these systems in and train people how to use them. And then my first business trip out of school was actually to Australia, where we did the first system of its kind in that country. So kind of cool
Wow,
stuff.
wait a minute,
Yeah,
wait a minute. So you're a freshly minted grad. You've been interning from this place for a year or so, and you're what, 22 years old, and
I
they
was
send you to
yeah, probably
Australia.
22, 23. I went to Australia, and this is how inexperienced I was at business, business travel and all that. I thought Australia, okay, it's south, it's going to be nice and warm there. And it was summer. It was July, right? So I just graduated. It was June or July, and I didn't realize that it's flipped,
Oh
right?
my
So it was
gosh.
where winter. I got there and froze my butt off, but it was a good few weeks. A really neat experience. Just kind of immersed me into a whole different part of the world.
So you went and joined them full time coming out of school, and then how long did you stay in that opportunity?
Yeah, I joined them full time for probably 2 years after school, and there really wasn't any leadership. It was a really small company, right? So there
Yeah,
really wasn't any leadership opportunities
right.
for me, not for a long time anyway. So I stayed with them about 2 years, and actually had an opportunity at that time to start a new business with a colleague I had met along the way. Um, Actually, I guess kind of a business partner, but anyway, I got a chance to start something with two folks there. So this is about 2000, the year 2000. Now we set that whole plan into motion, and that's when through that journey, it was when I got my first taste of leadership.
Yeah, cool. And that was that eDoc?
Yep, sure
Yeah,
was.
got
Yeah,
it. So you were a founder
yeah,
there.
yep.
Boy, so mid 20s then, 25 or so at the time. How
Yeah, it's
old were
probably
you?
By that time I was probably 25. Yeah, I think so. Just still very much a technology guy, very much enjoying that part of it, but I really didn't know what it meant to start a new business and the
Yeah.
different skill sets that was going to draw on, or the lack thereof at the time anyway. But
But you had a partner or a couple
I
partners.
had two partners,
Yeah.
and we started hiring pretty early on. And it was really fun. We were just flying by the seat of our pants, trying to win business, get customers, build a name there for ourselves and all that. But no formal guidance. We're just diving in and figuring it out.
Fantastic. Well, big risk taker at that
Yeah,
stage,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. But it worked out. I guess you were with the company for close to 14 years, was it? Is that not true?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we sold the business in 2013
Yeah.
finally. So yeah, 13, 14 years.
Tell us a little bit about what eDocument Resources did.
So at that time, we were really involved in the same information management systems. Actually, was the same core technology from my last role that we were selling into now bigger. It wasn't just banks; it was bigger enterprises, and we ended up winning some really big, Fortune 1000 orgs and big public sector customers, and just three guys and trying to make something happen. I'm surprised how sometimes how we won some of that business, but I think we were really dedicated at the time to do this, to solve customers' problems with information management, and really just committed to success. So
How'd you divide and conquer among the three partners?
yeah, one. So the one partner was more background, more financial,
Hmm.
kind of silent, and then the other partner, my main partner was really the main sales arm of the organization, if that
Right.
makes sense. And then I was doing a lot of the technical work. So we started hiring certainly within that first year. It didn't take us long to start to build out a team, but we did definitely had roles and responsibilities very well defined from that regard, just now naturally defined, I guess, from that regard.
And you said you sold the business after so many years. How many employees did you grow to over that
I
period?
think we probably had about 60, give
Yeah,
or take. Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
And you were kind of
Still a small
effectively the
business.
CTO or
I
head of the
was,
technical
yeah, I
side.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
We started hiring. I remember when we started hiring our first engineers, and Ken and I, my partner and I looked at each other and said, "Oh, who's going to manage these people?" And I guess, well, I guess that's me. I guess I'm in position for that. I don't
Look
really
at
even
the
know what it
technical
means, but
background.
I guess I will.
Yeah, terrific. So that's kind of when you started managing people. So
Yep.
again, 27, 28 years old,
Yep. Yep.
pretty early on. And were you hiring people that were about the same age, or were they a little older, or experience? How did you kind of make
Yeah.
some of those early hiring decisions?
They were about the same age. Most
Yeah.
most of them were. There was a few that were older, but most were my age or younger. And I wouldn't say that it got hard right away, but it definitely sinked in soon that it's more than just training these people on the technical aspects of the job. That part was
Right.
going fine. They needed more of that. They needed priority set and conflict resolved. Conflict with other teams. Potentially upset customers. All of those things. I remember thinking, "Gosh, what did I get myself into? I'm I'm not
Where'd you
ready for
go? I
this."
mean, what'd you do, Matt? How did you address this? Because
Yeah, we
again,
just, I leaned on, my partners and I were definitely a little later in their career, not much, but a little later in their career than I was. So they had some guidance for me from that standpoint. But, really, I read a lot, just kept making mistakes here and there, but trying to learn from those. And, eventually we got to a good point, right? My technical background then, now that I'm managing people, my technical background kind of came in useful there because I could actually, unlike a lot of managers at that time, there weren't a lot of technology, managers that we found. But I think my background really helped because I could kind of gain our engineers' respect, and because I knew what they were doing, I knew the work that they were doing. And if you've read anything about leading technical people, that's actually really big.
oh yeah.
Having the experience that they have, and kind of knowing, you know, um, how to guide them through that, and is a big deal.
Sounds like you had some good partners and you guys kind of shared experiences. Any outside mentors that you had, Matt, during those times?
I did kind of an informal mentor, but I mean several along the way. You pick up people along the way, but I would say my favorite was probably my grandfather. Honestly,
Mm,
he's still my favorite from that regard. But he was young when he had my mother, and when they had my mother, and then she was young when he had me. So I was lucky to have him in my life, really all the way through, right? So, and he was really successful in business, and even before I knew what that meant, I knew there was something special there. Again, we spent a lot of time together, and so my goal was always to like make him proud and lean on him when I was having a problem and whatnot. And he wasn't in the same business at all with me. He was in telecom, but just really helped me, just helped me, figure out that it's one thing to manage, equipment and machines and things like that. It's a whole different thing to manage people, and that really sunk in with me because I thought, okay, this is different than what I'm used to, and he did a great thing to help me out there.
remembering back, maybe to some of the early counsel and advice he might have given you, Matt, anything that stuck out that you maybe still use today?
You know, um, Anything I still use today, probably not. It was really just some of that early advice, just listening to me and just kind of watching him talk about his work and watching him, when I was younger, he took me to a lot of his, not board meetings, but certainly those types of events, conferences and all
Yeah.
that. So just kind of being immersed in that really, I think, really helped me out a lot. But that comment I made earlier about, managing people is very different than managing, technology or machines and whatnot. And that really just kind of just made me wake up a little bit. Like this is the world is more about managing the people, right? That's what you gotta really be focused on. And that didn't sink in for a while, but it eventually did.
You mentioned that you read a few books. Any authors or any sage advice and counsel as well that you recall back from that time that's
Oh
still resonates
gosh,
today?
yeah. Back then, I guess Good to Great. I'm trying to remember when that came out, but Good to Great was definitely a big one. Now I'm more, I'm reading a lot of from Patrick Lencioni
Yeah.
and folks like that are I really like that style, and I really like the leadership lessons he has.
So you guys decided to sell the business. You obviously grew it successfully up to about four. You said 60 people or so. Had about
Yep.
14 years.
Yeah.
What was the motivation behind that?
It was time.
Yeah.
We were running into challenges. It was really, we didn't have any funding outside of our own, so we had people growing in the company that wanted leadership opportunities. We were growing double digit every year, but when you're that small, even double digits is still only a few people a year. I think that the growth that we wanted to see, we weren't going to be able to fund ourselves. So we evaluated a few things like private equity, and we probably weren't at the size where that made sense for an outside firm. But we actually, had built some other relationships in our industry, built some other relationships with some folks that were looking to acquire similar-minded smaller companies and put those together. And that's really, so it was a bit opportunistic, and a bit, this kind of helped us take that next step for our people, really, which was to grow grow faster,
Did you
grow
take some
bigger.
time off from the time that you sold
I,
it till
I
till you
didn't.
did
No,
that?
I
Yeah.
didn't. They were our CEO of DataBank at the time really wanted to keep going on that acquisition train. Get us brought in and leverage our skill sets
Oh, so
for doing more
DataBank
of this.
did purchase
DataBank
that.
purchased us, EDOC,
Got
in
it.
2013. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So no,
Got
I don't think there was any time off. I think we just dove right in.
it. Sold on a Friday, went to
Story of my
work on a
life. Yeah,
Monday.
pretty much. Yeah.
I think your career then took a bit of a shift, right? You kind of went in more into client services, sales, and marketing from the pure CTO stuff. Tell us a little bit about that. Was that a transition for you that you were looking to do, or was that kind of the role that DataBank had for you once the company was purchased?
So throughout that journey at EAC, I mean, I certainly was leading people more, and we were just, again, a small organization, so still really customer facing. So I really enjoyed solutioning with our customers,
Mm,
stretching our team to meet some of those needs. I really had a keen respect for what sales has to go through, and that whole process, right, of building confidence, and then following through and delivering all that. So I was very much kind of at that even that whole tenure really migrating toward the front end of our business, right? Less on the technical, more on the front end. So, but when I got the DataBank, I was working really closely with the CEO at the time through our transition and all that. And I think he saw some potential in me beyond maybe what I was doing before, and just ended up giving me different assignments from a leadership
Mm.
perspective, right? So things that we both knew was stretching me to kind of take on, and knowing that it maybe didn't have any direct experience in things like leading sales and leading some of our pre-sales efforts, but he made me feel safe to struggle, right? I think he saw something there that he was, and I certainly was willing to help and willing to try. So I think it worked out really good.
You were kind of in your late 30s at the time, I guess, if I got the
Yeah, probably mid
timeline right.
30s. Yeah, something
And
like
was
that. Yeah,
was the
yeah.
CEO like in his 50s? Was he kind of a mentor in that regard
He was,
too?
yeah, probably late
Yeah,
50s, early
yeah.
60s, even maybe, but yeah, definitely a mentor at that point in time, and yeah, we really hit it off. I mean, I look back and we just really enjoyed time together. He definitely spent a lot of time with me, kind of just coaching, right? And even when I didn't even know what he was doing, he was coaching me, which is great. So
Now, did he start DataBank? Was that his?
he did, yep, yep. He
Yeah.
was
Okay.
a founder. DataBank was at that point in time was funded, primarily through private equity,
Right.
but he was the original one of the original founders.
And did your partners make the transition as well?
One actually through that journey, one we exited with one. Came up with a package for him and exited with one probably around maybe 2010. So it was just the two of us by the time we got to this point. And Ken, my other partner, he stayed on for a few years and then he retired.
Yeah. Yeah. He was a few years older.
Hmm.
Good. So did you kind of feel at some point you were being groomed for the top job? When did that kind of become obvious?
Well, it hit me over the head when he asked me if I wanted the job. Right, and he asked me, that was it's 2018 now. He had asked me if I wanted to be a CEO, and my first response to him was, look, no way. You travel too much. You're not home enough. I've got little kids at home. I just don't. I don't want that. Right? And plus, I'm not ready for it. Right. And he said, okay, fair enough. That makes sense, and really didn't mention it again. But then my mind is spinning at this point, right? Like wow, he
He
thought that.
introduced the
Yeah.
idea as
Oh
any good
yeah,
leader does.
yeah, exactly. And so I'm spinning on the idea for a while, and it just made me look at my work and his work in just a totally different lens. I guess really observing now, what am I doing now? What could I do potentially in the future? What's he doing? And then probably a few months later, he asked me again, same question. Do you think you want to do it yet? And I said no again. I decided, and I said, look, I just don't,
Little less firm, it sounds
a
like.
little less firm. Yeah, I'm like, I just don't think I'm ready. I just don't think I just don't think it's for me yet. But I didn't stay away very long. So I think within a week or two, maybe I came back and said, look, I know I don't have to be on the road 24/7. I could do that part very differently. At the end of the day, I still don't feel ready like that. I'm not confident that that's my issue. But on the other hand, I'm guessing you're not going to ask me a third time, and I'm guessing, right? And I'm guessing if you're me right now and you're in my shoes, not feeling overly confident, you would probably just dive in and figure it out. And he said, I think there was explicit there, but he said, yes. And, and my strengths, my weaknesses, and you still want me to do it, right? So hey, I'm saying now, I'm saying yes. If it's still open, I'll figure it out.
And
And
he's
so
early
now,
60s at the time, right? So
oh,
he's
good.
kind of getting ready. Was he early 60s at the time, getting ready to retire himself,
So
or
this is mid to late 2018,
got it?
something like that.
Yeah.
And the PE firm that we were involved in, was exiting too. So now we were actually sold again. We were sold to
Okay.
Kyocera Corporation. So I went through the transaction on that side of it.
Yeah.
So my position got approved by the board, and I was on my way at that point. It was really cool. We had about 6 months to work together before it was official, and then he stayed on as an advisor for quite a while after too.
Yeah.
So from a transition standpoint, it just couldn't have been better.
Yeah. Cool. What do you think flipped it for you in terms of going from that hard no to, yeah, my mind's open to this?
Really, two things. One was, how many opportunities do people get like that, right?
Right.
Where somebody's asking you directly, do you want this? Someone's going to take it, right, at some point in time, whether I go outside the firm or I'd rather it be you. And I just thought, that's only going to happen, maybe once in my lifetime. So I can't. I got to look at that really, really hard. And the other thing, I've always been probably a little too hard on myself,
Mm.
over the years, right? In terms of like, not being ready for something, don't deserve something, things like that. And I just really, I pushed past that one, and I said, look, I may never get another chance like this again. So I need to take it. I think this, I know the business well at this point in time. I know our customers, I know our people. This is not a new industry, right? This should be a situation I should be comfortable in, given the given the scenario. So I just said yes, I'll take it.
Love it. So been in the role, I guess, about 4.5 years. How
Hmm.
big's the company today, employee wise, and
Oh, just we're just
your
under
size?
yeah, we're under 1,000,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And global in your offering, or are you focused specifically on national business?
Yeah, mainly North America. Now that we're owned by Kia Sierra Corporation, that transition happened in 2017. So about 4 years after I got to DataBank, the private equity firm that we were partnered with exited, and like they do, and then this was a strategic buyer.
So you mentioned DataBank's just a little under 1,000 employees. Tell us a little bit about your offering. What do you folks do today, and who do you do it for?
So we are really primarily focused in data management, right? And mainly in the unstructured world. If you look at it, there's all kinds of estimates out here, but the last estimate I saw is, on a daily basis, we were creating about 2.5 exabytes of information globally, right? Just to kind of put that in perspective, and 80 to 90, I don't know how they measure this, but that's what the studies say. And 80 to 90% of that is unstructured information, right? So that's the world we live in. We help our clients, sift through that unstructured data, whether that's sitting in documents or in, physical documents in a warehouse somewhere, or in a digital repository that might need better organization. So we help our clients organize that into more structured, meaningful information, so they can, find it again, make decisions around it, run it through workflows, see, and then, see trends and insights, right? That's that sort of thing. So, and then even more exciting, like in the last couple of years, we've been really leveraging AI to help sort through a lot of that data. Is that instead of people and systems doing it, it's a lot more AI driven now, which is really an exciting place to be. I mean, it's kind of fun to watch this AI world that you hear so much about and can't quite get your arms around it, to see how that intersects with our offerings and industry. It's been really exciting.
Cool. So it's not just data organization, it's also data analytics and then
Hmm.
interpreting what to do with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yep.
field just been exploding.
Oh, it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Awesome. And how would you say your leadership styles evolved over time? Yeah, since you've taken over the corner office role.
I think it's really been, I've been mentioned a couple of times on this interview, confidence, right? So to me, confidence and assertiveness has really improved. I think I was probably way too timid early on, and once I got out of my own way in that regard and kind of trust yourself more, it helped my style a lot. Just being confident. You're really the one. It took me a while to realize, but you're the one, good or bad, that everyone's following, and you need to act like it. And sometimes just knowing when a decision needs to be made, right? Not waiting for everybody to get on board, or arrive at a full consensus, but just getting comfortable with making the tough calls, right?
The 80% call,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We're
Yeah, you
close
don't have
enough.
all the information you need. Even though that tough call might not be popular for someone or some group or something, but it's been a big lesson too.
How do you decide when it's time to maybe micromanage someone or, kind of stay out of their way and out of their sandbox, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So I think that in a lot of ways, I've read anyway that the CEO needs to spend a fair amount of time in like the dark alleys, right? The real problems in the business, areas where things aren't going well. Get in, address the situation, make sure someone's responsible for it, and then get out and move on to the next problem. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be something that isn't going the way it needs to. So I think in that cadence, you've got several areas of the business that you can trust are working well, and you can kind of stay hands off there. But then there's one or maybe two of that you and the functional leader really need to dig into, and that can feel like micromanagement to people, but it's temporary, right? It still has clear lines of responsibility and accountability, so that person will manage it going forward. They've got to be the one to own the problem. After all, you can't be expected to fly in and address everything. But even if you're with them for a little while, getting them to understand the problem as you see it, hear and absorb your expectations and support them. Reminding them that's a priority. And so I think it does feel like it sometimes, and sometimes I think it is. It is probably bordering on micromanagement, but that's where you need to spend your time.
Yeah.
You know,
Those dark
kind
alleys can be scary.
of they can be. That's why they're dark, right? No one else is in there. Yeah.
Now, you went through a couple of transitions. You obviously took over the CEO about 4 years ago, and you mentioned also a PE sale. company culture really is driven by the CEO.
Mhm.
What would you say? Two questions here. What would you say is kind of most unusual or unique about your culture, and how do you kind of propagate that? With 1,000 folks, it's hard for you to meet everyone and see everyone in any period of time. So, talk to us a little bit about company culture.
Yeah, one thing that it took me a long time for me to sink in, but then once it did, I think I've just been riding that train, waving that flag better rather for a long time, and that's really been communication transparency, right? So I believe you've got to tell people the hard stuff. You've got to address difficult topics like maybe a downsizing. I always encourage our leaders, and we do share as many numbers as we can, even if it's good news or bad news, right? You've got to translate that to make sure people know how to interpret that information. But to me, that's how you build trust, right? And I think we've really done that here. I think we've done a good job. I think it's also very critical since we're mostly a virtual organization. Like our leadership's virtual. People travel a lot, but we're spread out, and you don't see people face to face as much as you would sometimes. One time a year, maybe even in less from a employee standpoint. So I think the more transparent you are, the more confident they feel that they're getting information. And then from a communication standpoint, one thing that's really stood out to me is I've heard this repeatedly now, which I love, especially from employees that maybe came to us from a larger organization, is that our communication is just more than they've ever seen, right? And more than these larger, much more capable, much more resource, heavy, companies have is just the communication has been just really, really strong here. So I think that's being visible, right? Again, difficult in a virtual setting, but we try to visit. I try to visit as many locations as I can, just to again be visible for everybody. And when I was in a physical office, right, the door was always open,
Right.
right, and people came by to say hello, ask a question, whatever. And I miss that. I mean, it's been a long time now, but I do miss those days. So one thing I'm doing right now is doing virtual office hours, right? I've got a TV in my office that's dedicated to Zoom, and have set hours throughout the week where I'm just waiting for someone to stop by and say hello. And sometimes
Nice.
we talk about football or kids, or sometimes just work, and it doesn't really matter to me. It's the closest thing I've seen to be able to simulate that true open door setting where people could just stop in and talk. And I feel, in my heart, I feel like those things go a long way to just being, visible for people, being, approachable, authentic, and again, hard to do in a virtual setting. A lot more work, but I think it matters. I really do.
You've been going through a lot of growth, and obviously it means hiring people.
Hmm.
What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire at DataBank, Matt?
Yeah, this came from another book, and I forget which one it was, but something about looking for people that are, I think, hungry, smart, and curious. I think those are the three attributes. So we definitely look for culture fit. We've certainly made mistakes like anybody along the way, where you find somebody who's super talented, but is just not a culture fit, and you have to part ways. But depending on the situation and the role, we'll look for a veteran in our field. But most of my fond memories of bringing people in are someone that was just eager to learn, and then watch and see what they've been able to do a few years later, and someone that maybe came in for one role and now is doing something completely different, and being successful at it is a really, really cool thing. So again, more than experience, it's really, for us, it's just culture, right? Is this going to fit?
Yeah.
Um, we have different hiring styles depending on the role. Sometimes it's very committee driven. Sometimes it's just manager driven. But getting input from others, especially in a key role like a management role, getting input from others that aren't working directly with that person, or won't be working directly with that person rather, is just really good 360 kind of feedback you get.
Do you still get involved in interviews with folks other than your direct reports?
I do. Less and less, but it really depends on the role, and depends on if I may have some past knowledge, whether it's people in my network, or just a role I think is going to be just uniquely important for us to fill with the right person. And yeah, so I'll get involved in those, definitely.
Do you have a favorite interview question or process that you put in, particularly someone that's been vetted, right? That's gone through maybe two or three rounds before they've seen you.
Yeah, I like to just not spend time on the previous accomplishments and the roles and anything that's already in the resume, or information you can easily read. I mean, oftentimes I think our interviews are just kind of confirming what might already be there. But I like to spend time with, the obstacles and where'd you have problems, and so there's a question I like to ask about. What did you do to overcome, whatever, give me an obstacle, give me something that really marked you in your career, something that didn't, hopefully something that didn't go well, right? And how you overcame that obstacle, mistakes you made, what did you learn? I get a lot out of people telling me, really something difficult, and being willing to do that, right? Being willing to kind of go on that ledge and talk about something difficult, because sometimes it's a mistake that person actually made, right? And that's fine. We all do that all the time. And I think that element of surprise too really helps to see if people can think on their feet. But that's really where I'll spend my time.
Matt, we're just about out of time, and thank you so much for sharing your journey. Last question we have, and we ask this of all our CEO guests, is, what kind of career and life advice should you give to someone who maybe has their eyes on the corner office someday and, wants to, run a company?
Yeah. I think really being curious. I mean, we've all come through our career with some certain discipline, typically, and being curious about those other things, even if it's an area you're not confident in, asking questions, being the one that speaks first when there's time for feedback, and all that. I think reading a lot, getting something out of everything that you read, and just again, just back to curiosity. I think that's really the big thing. I think it's important for you to know about your company's numbers, right? Know what's being measured, what good looks like, what it means when it doesn't look good, and then try to learn from that, really, and spend some time cross functionally in the organization, right? If you're in an operational role, for instance, and you never see that kind of the market facing portion of your org, the customer facing part, if you're not in sales, you just look for opportunities to spend time there and learn, whether that's on some committee or some partial role, whatever it might be. But just, I think you really need to see the breadth of the org, and see and have a good appreciation anyway for what all these different functions are that make the company what it is, not just being the best at in one area. You may not be great in those other areas, but knowing what they do and what they mean is really, really, really important. And then from my personal experience, right, again, the journey I took to get here, I didn't have a lot of financial background and a lot of experience in that side of it. So that was definitely an eye opener when I got in the role, spending a lot of time, a lot of nights and weekends with our CFO, asking a lot of dumb questions. she's been great with me, but it definitely took a while to get there. So I think that's another area to spend some time in too, whether it's formal training, or just spending time with the group that you do have in your company to learn about what observations they have, what they see in the numbers.
Sage counsel. Matt Charlson, President and CEO at DataBank IMX, thank you so very much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Brand, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.